to Series 3, Episode 2 of In Suspense, a podcast and vodcast for fans and writers of crime fiction. I am Laura North, and my co-host is, of course, the lovely Leslie Curra. Hello, Leslie.
Hello.
Last episode, we spoke to the phenomenal B.A. Paris about her fifth book, The Therapist, and coming to writing as a second career. And it was a really fascinating episode, and I think that Bernadette made some really great points about carving out time for yourself, and I think that's so valid for whatever stage you are at or when you come to writing. That carving is so important. So really great episode, so do catch up if you haven't listened or watched it already. But before we talk about today's topic, Leslie, how are you and how are your edits going? Because last episode you said you just got them but you hadn't quite got round to going in yet.
Yes, well, I have gone in and it's okay. At the moment, I'm finding it manageable. I did have a break. I had a sort of week or so where I didn't look at them. I did meet my editor for a walk along the beach, so that was nice, and we talked about it. But then I just sort of took a week to mull them over. But even when you try and take a break, your mind still thinks about your novels, doesn't it? Even though you try not to. I think as writers, we never truly switch off, do we? Well, I don't anyway.
I don't.
But so I'm back into it now. I always find it's a very different part of the process, isn't it? When you're actually writing those first drafts, it's much more intense, I think. And well, I certainly work longer hours when I'm at that sort of stage, whereas with editing I feel it's more contained. I feel that I can do other things in the day and have a smaller section of time where it seems more like proper work, doesn't it? Like office work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm really the same as you. Very obsessive on the first draft. I sort of sleep with it in my head constantly and I write really long, crazy hours. But then, as you say, the edits, it's more methodical. It's right, this needs to happen and then this, and you feel like you have more balance in your life. I don't know which one I prefer actually, because I do love that crazy, got to get that story downstage.
I used to sort of get very het up really when I first saw my editorial notes, in the past. I remember it used to make me feel quite nauseous because I think, oh God, all that work. But actually, it is quite nice going back in and layering and adding texture and feeding in clues and things like that. It's quite an exciting time to be making what you've written better. I think the main problem for me is that I always have several different endings in mind, different ways it could go. I start off with one ending that I'm quite sure about. And then once it's gone through the editorial process, editors might have another thought about something, and there are different options, and it's the thinking time that takes so much effort, isn't it? If you know exactly how you're going to do it, you can write it quickly, but it's deciding what you're going to do that takes all the time for me. And I think I'm kind of there now. I've done quite a few edits, but I'm trying to work out exactly how I'm going to write the very last section. And so that's where I'm at really. But so the last time we spoke, you were having a little bit of anxiety, weren't you, Laurie?
Yes, I was. I'm much better. I'm much more on an even kilter now. So it's all sort of leveled out. But then I had my vaccine for COVID, the following week. And it just completely knocked me out. I was quite ill for quite a few days from it. Not that it put me off at all. I would absolutely recommend anyone having it. But I'm really pleased to have had it. But then, yes, I've almost had sort of 2 weeks where it's all been quite up and down for me. But I'm still tinkering with book 5 and I had a great call with my agent about it yesterday, and both of us were a bit like, well, it's a bit of a gamble, so we're not really sure what's happening there.
Sounds exciting.
It's really exciting. I'm not sure I might not ever come to the light of day, but I've got my notes back on book 4 from my agent as well, and so I'm doing them this week, and then it's going to go to Transworld, so that'll be book 4 down, which is exciting. So yes, all being very busy, but our topic for the day is having your novel optioned for TV or film, which is very exciting. And another topic which I, again, cannot contribute to other than to say I wish I had one of my books optioned for TV or film. But it's lucky that we've got you, Leslie, and then we've got two amazing guests. So tell us, Leslie, tell me about how it happened for you.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before it happens for you, Laurie. So, book 5 sounds very interesting. So maybe that's the one. Well, yes. I was incredibly lucky, really. The rumour was optioned before I'd even finished writing it. I was still doing the edits.
Wow.
I know. My agent had, unbeknownst to me, had sent off the first 30,000 words to a film TV agent that she works with, and had a lot of interest at that point. And she hadn't told me because she knew that I was sort of very immersed in my edits. I guess she didn't want to distract me, and I think that was a good thing, because I would have lost my head completely if I'd known there was that going on in the background. But she did tell me after a month or so, and then so it sort of went to sort of some like an auction. There were about 6 TV production companies that were interested, and it was a really heady time for me, because they were sort of sending me things through the post. I'd get glossy brochures and things all about the rumour, and I'd get then another company was sent I got this parcel through the post. It was like a beach bag with an R2-D2. See my R2-D2 there? Because that's one of the toys.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the toys that the little boy Alfie plays with in the rumour. And they put sticks of rock in there with the name, going through the rock. So it was all very exciting. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. Little did I know what a long old process getting a TV deal is. It may never happen. I've got a script now. Someone's written a script. There's a writer attached, so it's looking hopeful. But many times it doesn't come to fruition, does it? So I'm just sort of hoping for the best, but not getting my hopes up too much, because it's been a couple of years now. So we shall see.
Yeah, I can only imagine or daydream that it must be very strange to see your story sort of being fought over like that. And also when you get the script, that must be really weird to see your words transformed by someone else. Did you have any desire to sort of tinker with it and like cross things out, be like, no, she won't say that?
No, do you know, I didn't. I was asked when we sort of, all the production companies were sort of pitching the novel to me back in when it was May 2019 or whenever it was, 2018, I can't even remember now, 2018, yeah. I think I was asked if I would be interested in writing a screenplay, but I said absolutely not, because I don't have any experience of doing that. I'm sure it's fun and I could have learned how to do that, but I think it's too much of a risk. I'd rather leave that to people who know what they're doing. So, but when I did read the sort of pilot episode or whatever it is, the sort of script that they take out, I read it twice, and it was it was interesting, because lots of it was the same, but there were some very marked differences as well, and a couple of new characters, and it's weird because it's no longer your novel, and I think that's right, because it's two completely different media, isn't it, really? TV, film, and writing, and a lot of the stuff in the rumour was, there might have been a lot of internal monologue or thoughts of the main character, which doesn't translate well to screen, does it? So they have to find ways of bringing some of that information out in other more creative ways. So no, I really enjoyed it, actually. I'm just terribly excited, and hope it happens, but I've got that dose of realism that tells me it might not. So
I think that sounds very sensible, and sensible not to get too attached, because you do hear these horror stories of TV series that all crumbled because the author got involved and ruined it all by trying to write their own stuff and refused to allow that actress or actor to play the parts. I think obviously that has to be pretty high up level. I don't suppose we'd have that kind of authority.
I mean, they sort of, you know, they ask how much you want to be involved and all that sort of thing. I think you know, I would be what do they call it, associate producer or something, but that I'm sure that's just a salve to the writer's vanity. I'm not sure that you have much much input really. I mean, you get to read the script, and I suppose you can have a say. How much they'd listen to you, I don't know. But you're involved up to a certain point. But I'm not sure, you know, I'd want to be heavily involved, because I as I say, it's not my area of expertise really.
No, I can agree with that. And maybe it's a bit like when you get your cover through from the publishers and they're like, we hope you love it as much as we do. And like, really, that's the cover, isn't it? Like, and there might be a few tweaks, but really that's it. So
yes, we all love this cover.
Yes,
everybody in the whole office loves it. We hope you do too. You're not going to say no, are you?
Yeah, you can't really say you don't. So yeah, maybe it's a bit like that. It's input but not input.
I might add that I've loved all my covers though. I said I might add that I have loved all my covers though, just in case anyone's listening from Transfer.
Yes, me too. What's interesting, I think, about being optioned for TV and film is that it's quite a cloak and dagger thing. Like, you don't you sort of hear the announcements, obviously, and then you obviously there's nothing, and then 2 years later or 5 years later, there it is, hopefully on Netflix or ITV. And this, you don't really know how the process has happened. I think because it doesn't happen for every author, it's not talked about as openly, I think, as other parts of the industry. So I'm really pleased we're doing this podcast so I can learn lots about it, and other people can learn as well. And it's also fantastic for us that we've got two guests with us who know lots about the process, because they have also had options, and that is the amazing TM Logan and the very lovely Nikki Smith.
Oh, I can't wait to welcome them on, because it's the first time we've ever had two guests, isn't it? So
yes, isn't that exciting? Yes, so
double the chance.
I'm a bit nervous about it.
Double the chance for me to fluff my lines, really. Okay, great. Well, they're going to join us very shortly. Can't wait. Hello and welcome TM Logan and Nikki Smith to In Suspense. It's so lovely to have you both with us, and it's even more special because it's the first time that we've ever had two guests. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invite.
Lovely to see you both. Now, we start off usually by reading your biographies out and then asking you to say a little bit about your books. So I shall start off with Tim. I hope I can call you Tim instead of TM, because
you can, yeah.
Good. So TM Logan was a national newspaper journalist before turning to novel writing full time. He lives in Nottinghamshire with his wife and two children and writes in a cabin at the bottom of the garden. His thrillers have been translated into 19 languages and sold more than 1 million copies, as well as being a Richard and Judy book club pick. His fifth novel, Trust Me, which is behind me there because I was very lucky enough to get an early proof, which was fabulous. Oh, and Laurie's got her one there too. So yes, his fifth novel, Trust Me, was released last month. So Tim, do you want to tell us a little bit about the roller coaster that is Trust Me?
Yeah, it's thank you for inviting me, by the way. Trust Me is a psychological thriller, as with my previous books, and it has some things in common with, you know, in that regard with The Catch and The Holiday and Lies and my other books. So it starts off on a train, and it's two strangers meet on a train. One of them does a quick favor for the other, and that sort of kicks off all of the action, kicks off the story, because what actually happens is, the main character is called Ellen, and she meets this young mum who sits down opposite her on the train, young mum with a small baby, And the mum is quite stressed and worried, and she's trying to take a phone call, and the baby's there, and Ellen says, look, let me just hold the baby for a second while you get yourself sorted out and deal with this phone call. So that's what they do. And then a few minutes later, Ellen looks up, the train pulls into a station, and the mum is hurrying away down the platform, having left the child behind. So, and that's chapter 1. That's where everything kind of starts from, and it becomes clear at that point to Ellen that there's, lots and lots of things about this situation that she doesn't know, and various people who are seeking this baby out for different reasons. Some of them, very, very bad reasons. So yeah, it's a thriller.
Oh, it certainly is a thriller. It had me hooked from the very first chapter. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And
thank you for your lovely cover quote as well. I was very chuffed to have that on there. So
it was a pleasure. Meant every word. It was a pleasure.
It was absolutely, as you say, a thrilling read, and it just didn't let up at all for the entire book. So amazing. And on to Nikki. So I'm going to read your bio, Nikki. Nikki studied English literature at Birmingham University before pursuing a career in finance, working in a variety of different companies, including an investment bank and a trampoline park. She always had a passion for writing, and in 2017, she had a now or never moment and applied for Curtis Brown Creative 3-month writing course, which she absolutely loved. Later that year, she had a short story published in Writers Forum magazine and submitted the opening chapters of her novel to a competition, where she won the opportunity to be mentored by the author Amanda Reynolds. She lives near Guildford with her husband, 2 daughters, and very friendly Burmese cat called Safi. All in Her Head was published in April 2020, and her second novel, Look What You Made Me Do, was published last month. Oh no, it's published this month, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sorry.
This month, yes. Well, it was ebook last month, hardback this month, yes. Thank you.
It is, yes. And I obviously said it was amazing, and I said a shocking wow of a read, and I thought, so it was amazing, a really great story. Would you mind telling us all about it, please, Nikki?
Yes, thank you very much for having me as well. So Look What You Made Me Do is also a psychological suspense thriller, and it's really about the dark secrets that lie beneath the surface of a seemingly perfect family. And I know we're going to talk about kind of books to film and things, so I guess a couple of people have described this as a cross between Sleeping with the Enemy and The Split. With Nicola Walker, apparently. So yes, it's about 2 sisters, Jo and Caroline, who are in their late 30s. They've never been close whilst they were growing up, and then their father dies and leaves his entire inheritance to Jo. And then we find out Caroline really wants what Jo has, but the question is, how far will she go to get it?
Oh, very exciting. I'm a huge fan of yours, Nikki, as you know. You really have got that toxic relationship down to a T, and all those heightened emotions. And Tim, you've got a reputation as king of hooks, as I like to think, and never letting up on the tension. And I wondered with your book, Tim, and all your books, that hook, because you always come up with these amazing ideas, and they're so easy to explain. Does that come in a light bulb moment for you, or is it something that's sort of developed over time?
The first hook, the first idea tends to come, kind of a little bit out of the blue, and then it's a question of whether or not I think I can, develop that and sustain it. So obviously with Trust Me, that's literally your stranger hands you a tiny baby on a train, and that came to me because I was at an ice hockey match, and there was a young family in front with this incredibly cute baby who kept on smiling at everybody and grinning at everybody, and it was just one of those really just making eye contact with everyone. And I think I was a bit bored during the match or something, and I was thinking, well, I wonder if I could look after that baby. My kids are sort of teenagers by this point, and so I thought, well, would I remember it all the stuff you have to think about and all the things you have to carry and all the timings and all those things. So that was the origin of that story. And then I thought, well, and why would a mother leave their baby with a stranger? What could possible reason could there be for that? And it was kind of that was the starting point. And with the holiday, even more, you can boil that even down even more to sort of, 4 women go on holiday together, and one of them discovers that her husband's having an affair with one of the other three. So that's sort of, you know, in a nutshell. And with The Catch, I don't know if anybody read any of these, but with The Catch, it's again, a little bit kind of from my own, well, not from my own experience, but I'm kind of projecting forward maybe a few years. Is, you know, one of your kids brings home a new partner and a potential life partner, and you just get a really bad feeling about them. And that was the hook for The Catch. So I think they start from that, and then it's the sort of the rolling that out to kind of a full length novel, which is a bit of a longer process. I don't know if that answers your question, or I've kind of rambled slightly.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the sort of, that seems to be how I'm writing at the moment.
Amazing. Fantastic. And Nikki, your books really, they literally hum beneath the surface with tension and unease. And I was wondering whether, you know, how you do that, whether that comes naturally as you're writing the first draft or drafts, or whether that unease and tension and the very sort of that unsettled feeling that you induce in the reader, whether that's something that you develop, you know, in subsequent drafts and edits. How does that come about?
Well, I'd love to say I can just do it naturally, Leslie, but I don't think that would be the case. Sometimes, I mean, that is how I like to write, and sometimes bits of it happen, I think, in a first draft, but I definitely have to go back over kind of subsequent drafts and just really look at the kind of, you know, my characters, I guess, and the language they're using, and I always try to get beneath the surface. So one thing will appear to be happening on the surface, but I really want people to kind of imagine what else could be happening underneath. And that always just takes a little bit of a while, I think, to kind of get your head around how you can kind of appear to be doing one thing, but you're actually doing something else. So yes, editing. I think.
Definitely.
Yes. Writing. Yes.
Yeah, editing is where the real writing happens, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, so true. Yeah.
Well, today's topic, as you both know, is having your novel optioned for TV or film. And so I'd like to start by asking you both how your deals came about. It's just really fascinating process, and it doesn't always happen the same way for the same. It's not just a structure to it, if you know what I mean. I'm not getting very good with my words today. Tim, do you want to start, please?
Yeah, I mean, with The Holiday, which is being filmed at the moment, that was just a process of, it came out in July 2019, and then there were sort of some approaches from production companies in the late summer and early autumn, and because I was looking back, because I knew we were going to have this conversation, so I was looking back in all the email traffic and kind of how it all worked, and it was late summer, and then I spoke to them, those people, and you have to then we sort of make a choice about which one we were going to go with, and we chose one. So it's very much a kind of collaboration with my agent, or with the film agent, Sheila David at Darley Anderson, and we kind of, you know, decided to pick one of these companies, and because they had a really good track record. It's Projector. They're quite a small outfit, but they're owned by Trevor Eve, who's obviously got an enormous track record of in this area, in TV and theatre. So we went with them, and then there was I think I saw a first episode script in I don't know, probably in the autumn, late autumn, because it was a kind of the process of, they attached the script writer to it, and he said, well, I'm going to write the scripts, I'm going to send them to you so you can comment and give some feedback, and that, which was a really, really kind of interesting, you know, part of the process for me. But of course, that at that time in the autumn, there isn't a green light yet, so there's kind of they've attached the script writer, developing a script, and you're hoping and having your fingers crossed that there might be a green light for the project, which did then come about in December. But I think I'd always approached it from, and I still approach it from the point of view of, you know, even getting an option is great, because my expectations were quite low, because my first two books have been optioned as well, and I thought, well, you know, someone had told me, someone who I used to work with, Vira McFarlane, I don't know if some of you might have, she's a very successful novelist, also lives in Nottingham, and she's been at this longer than I have, and she'd had some of her books optioned, and she said, you just got to, years ago, she said, you just got to say there's a nice little bit of money, and that's great, and you got to kind of have the attitude that, if it happens, that's fantastic, but probably not going to happen, because that's the odds are kind of against. Well, not the odds are against you, but there's lots of books that are optioned, and it won't necessarily go forward. So that's kind of the attitude I tried to take with the holiday. And then when it got green light in December last year, I was I was.
Did you do a happy dance, Tim?
I did. Yeah, it was. I've actually misremembered that, because it was lockdown year last year. What I should have said was it was the production company took it on at the end of 2019. And I saw the first script at the end of 2020, and it was greenlit at the end of 2020. So I kind of missed out a whole year in the description.
I was thinking, that was so fast.
That was because of last year, and it's obviously gone by in a bit of a weird blur. So because I had my first chat with the screenwriter was in February last year, and we were talking obviously pre-lockdown, kind of pre-pandemic, and he was saying, yeah, we might be filming this year, and it'll be great, and then of course lockdown happened in March, and everything was just put on ice. So that was made it even more kind of surprising to me that it's kind of got to the point it's at now. So
and that point now is that it's currently being filmed, is it?
Yes, so it started at the beginning of April in Malta, and because obviously the book itself was set in the south of France, but then they were going to set it originally in Tenerife, I think, and then they changed to Malta for various reasons. And obviously, COVID has added a kind of whole new layer of complication to all these kind of productions. So yeah, it's being filmed at the moment. They've got another about 10 or 11 days of shooting, I think, and I've just had an email this afternoon actually from the production company saying that I can have access to I think some of the rushes from some of the recent days shooting. So yeah, because obviously I can't really go out there. I was sort of dropping lots of hints at the beginning, saying, I'd love to go out there, and I wonder how's it going, and sort of thing. But there's quarantine, all those things. So it's not really been possible to go and spy on them as they're making it. But I've been sort of seeing various pictures on social media and stuff. So
I'm sure in normal times you would have been out there by now, wouldn't you? Sitting on the set.
Well, I hope so. I was in a Zoom read through the cast rehearsal on Zoom at the end of March, and that was. I mean, I just sat there and muted my microphone and listened to them all do their stuff. But that was good. That was good to see it kind of all brought to life.
So exciting.
That's fascinating. And what about you, Nikki? What's your story?
Well, my first novel, All in Her Head, was optioned, and so I got my deal for that back in January 2019, but it wasn't published until April 2020. And it was about November 2019, so probably similar to Tim, actually, before the pandemic hit and we kind of went into all of this. I was my agent was approached by a film company called Palmer Pictures, and they were kind of local producers they've done things like The Night Manager and The Crown, but kind of based in Mallorca. They got in contact, and then we went for a very nice lunch in London when you used to be able to do those kind of things. I liked the kind of vision they had for it. They were very enthusiastic about it. But I was probably even more naive than Tim. It was my first novel and it hadn't even been published, so I had no expectations as to what would happen. And I think I'm pretty realistic about it, is that as you say, it's lovely to have it optioned, and hopefully maybe one day something will happen to it. I think they've had a script writer attached to it, but mine's not in production yet. Fingers crossed, you don't know, but it's just it's one of those things that you will just kind of wait and see what happens. But still very exciting.
Yes, I'm at a similar stage as you, Nikki. It was the rumor was optioned before it was published before I'd finished writing it actually. But and there's a script and but it's still anything could happen. So it's thrilling to hear when it does happen.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see both of them. But Laurie made an interesting point earlier. We did our little introduction earlier before you joined us about how getting a novel optioned for TV or film is quite a mysterious process for many writers. We're sort of kept in the dark really about how it works until it actually happens, and even then it's quite I've certainly found it an interesting and quite long drawn out process. Has there anything about the whole thing that surprised you, either of you? Anything that you wouldn't have known before it happened to you?
I was just completely naive to the whole thing. I realised books got made into films, obviously, but at the time when mine was optioned, my novel hadn't even come out. Same as you, Leslie. So it was really, it was my kind of agent who was saying to me, okay, these guys want to buy it. This is what they want to do with it, and I was just kind of like, okay, that's great. I didn't really have any expectations. It's only kind of, I think, further down the line you realise that there's probably certain things like and we'll probably go on and talk about some writers decide to write the script or be involved in some way. I was completely kind of like, no, you take it and do whatever you like with it, because I had no idea. So it was just, for me, it was like, this is wonderful that somebody even wants to put it on the screen.
And I suppose, Tim, you'd been through the process a couple of times before, so you were sort of aware that it might not happen, so it must be even sweeter now that it actually has.
Yeah, but I think, like Nikki says, I went in with my knowledge of it was sort of pretty much zero. So you kind of people start talking at you about production and distribution and all the kind of acronyms and stuff that are attached. Because obviously publishing has got kind of all its own language and its kind of acronyms and its kind of secret language and TV and film, I think, is similar in that respect. So it's kind of all these things that are sort of thrown at you, and you kind of sit there and nod, and then after you say, what did all of that mean? And then what does that mean? And do they pay for that bit, or do they So it's been a learning process for me, and I've gone from zero to sort of slightly above zero. So in terms of knowing a bit more about it and a bit more about the process, and so it's and I don't know if you're going to talk about this in a bit, but the script writing process is quite fascinating to me, and seeing the scripts, seeing the bits that are left in and obviously lots and lots that's left out, and the way things are done. I find that quite fascinating. It's a different discipline to.
Yes. We're definitely going to come on to that, aren't we, Laurie, in a minute? Definitely. Yeah.
I just had I think we've got a couple in a second. I just had one other question first, which was so obviously some books don't transfer very well to film, and I always think of the example that you have two characters leading two different lives, and the big twist at the end is they're actually the same person, and that works fantastically in a book but would never work in film or TV. So now that you've been through the process, has it changed how you go about writing your books? Has it sort of made you think, oh, well, actually, that wouldn't go into a TV or show, so I'll change that around just in case? Has it changed it at all?
For me, no, not at all. I just write kind of what I want to write and what I think my story is about and what my characters are like. I don't even think about it being made into a film, because you just don't know if it's if that will ever happen. It's a lovely nice to have if it does, but I wouldn't write something, I'm not in that world kind of thing. I'm in the kind of publishing world and not a screenwriter, so I kind of write as good as I can, a book as I can, and if somebody wants to adapt it, then that's fantastic. But I don't ever change anything, because I think that would look better on the screen, because I don't have enough knowledge to even be able to make that decision, I don't think so.
What about you, Tim? Do you write visually? Do you write?
I agree with Nick. I see it in my head while I'm writing it, but I don't. I'm always kind of focused on, you know, I always come back to the point of trying to make the book as best as it can be, and that is, if you're, and try not to be distracted by anything else, not to be distracted by, you know, other things which you think at the time might be important, but actually, in terms of my job, what I do now is the number one thing, and has to be, and it will always be, trying to make the book and the story is the best that it possibly can be, and so anything that's going to distract from that, and I think if you're sort of adding scenes in or certain character arcs in, I think that potentially for me would probably work against that, I suspect. When I read some books and then you see the screen adaptation, you think, you know, this person must have literally just written that to make it work, and obviously some books transfer really well and really easily. But for me, it took me kind of quite a long time to get to the point of getting a book deal, and to kind of then to get onto, I'm working on book 6 now. So I feel like I'm trying to get better at what I do, rather than sort of, you know, maybe already kind of branching out and looking at other things. So yeah. I'm always kind of, very, very aware that I need to focus on the book as a book. So it's a different beast to a 4-part or 8-part, you know, TV drama or a film of 90 minutes. They're just different, and some will transfer and some won't, and lots of, you know, and even more than publishing, so much of that is out of your control. So, and there's so much luck involved, and so much more luck, and you know, there's so much you can't influence. So you just can't. You've got to sort of, I think you've got to view them as separate entities, really.
I think you're absolutely right. They're so very different. And that sort of, going back to what you were saying before about writing screenplays and things, I mean, did you say that you were offered the option of doing that? Or would you have ever said yes if they had offered you the option of writing the screenplay?
It never came up. I mean, I probably, I've never done it before, so I would never have volunteered. It's on my kind of list of things to sort of try and to look into, but and looking at the scripts for The Holiday was you know, really, really interesting, because you can, like I say, that each episode is 4 lots of 60 minutes, but obviously you've got advert breaks, so it's maybe 49 minutes each one. Each minute translates to roughly a page of script. So, and in terms of the book, so there's so much that is kind of that's trimmed out, kind of thing. So much that, you know, one line of a script has to achieve probably a lot more than one line in a book. So, but no, I wasn't offered it. Maybe in the future I would like to, you know, look at doing that. But because I think JP Delaney has written the scripts for It's the Girl Before, isn't it? I think
that's right. Yes.
Huge one. I saw something the other week about that. I think it's BBC that is sort of attached to that project. But yeah, he's written scripts for that, and obviously have a close involvement in the process. So yeah, maybe in the future that'd be nice.
Yeah. What about you, Nikki? Would you ever consider writing the screenplay?
I mean, I think, like Tim says, you know, maybe it's something that I could look at in the future, but at the moment, you know, I've only just kind of had my second novel come out, so I think I just need to focus on the books really at the moment. And then but yeah, I mean, you know, never say never, and it would be really interesting. I mean, I've read through a few of the scripts, and you know, things in the BBC script writers room as well, and yeah, and it is really interesting to see how they're done, but it is a completely different skill set, and I think you probably need to, you know, have a bit of training on how to do it, kind of, first of all. So
it's quite interesting, isn't it, when you do read? I mean, I've read the sort of pilot episode of The Rumour, and it's interesting, isn't it? I was wondering what you felt when you read this, when you know, do get to read a script, how you feel about letting your novel go, because obviously lots will change, you know, they might change characters, change events to make it fit the screen better, which is as it should be. But I wonder how that makes you feel, or how that would make you feel if it's changed quite a bit. Would you feel upset or worried about that at all?
I personally wouldn't. No, I mean, I knew, you know, when I signed the kind of contract for the deal, that it was the kind of deal where they could do, you know, if they want to set it on a spaceship, they could. I mean, I don't think I'd be particularly happy about that. I don't think it would particularly fit the story, but no, it didn't worry me. That's what I knew I was kind of getting myself into, and I think it's then difficult if you're a writer, you try and be involved in a project where somebody else is responsible for the script. If you're kind of butting in saying, oh, I'm not sure about that, and I think we should change that, and you've got somebody else's kind of creativity who's used to doing it saying, well, this is what I want to do, I think it all can, then you end up with nothing. So I think it's better to decide you're either going to do it yourself and kind of write the scripts and really be involved, or you just hand the whole thing over to somebody else and trust that they're going to do as good a job as they can on it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And actually, we've spoken in the past, haven't we, Nikki, about a screenwriting course. But I think we both looked at it not as wanting to necessarily write screenplays, but just from my perspective, could it help me become a better novelist if I understand the process of writing it in a very short, concise way? Like you say, one line has to do so much. Could you almost write the screenplay and then write the novel, if you see what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different ways you can come at novel writing. So yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to learn, but I don't think I could see myself writing a screenplay and then developing it into a novel, but I don't think I could take my 80,000 word novel I've poured my heart into and strip it back to such a degree that one line could do all like 10,000 words, for instance. So I think it is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That's just reminded me what you've just said there, Laurie. I think didn't Erin Kelly write a novel based on the TV series Broadchurch? She did, didn't she? So that sort of...
That rings a bell, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the sort of the opposite way round, wasn't it? So she, yeah, I mean, I think she was commissioned to do that. I presume she was. I don't know, but that's an interesting way round as well, isn't it?
I think I've always felt like there's so many impediments and sort of obstacles to it actually happening that I wanted to try and make it as, as not as frictionless, but kind of to I didn't want to, be an extra problem in the process sort of thing. So I didn't want to be kind of, provided, like Nikki says, that they weren't having a sort of a T-Rex coming in at the end or something and kind of, biting the head off the main character. Then you just think, well, you know what, you just got to try and give this the best chance it can have, and that means stepping back and letting, because they got the script writer on a holiday is a really experienced guy who's he's done 3 out of 4, and there's someone else who's done the 3rd episode, but you just got to trust that they know what they're doing, and
you wouldn't want to get a reputation as a really annoying writer, would you? That TM Logan putting his nose in and
because I think
you never get optioned again, would you?
I think it's quite a small, it's not a small industry, but I think it's kind of one of those things where that sort of thing travels 10 times faster than anything else. So yeah, I think you've got to be a little bit wary, and like I said, I think that a screen version of something is a different animal to the book, and enjoyed by different people in some ways, and enjoyed for different reasons maybe, and in different ways. So I think I've tried to sort of separate them in my head a little bit as to one is this and one is that.
Yeah, that sounds very sensible. So on to the $1 million question, literally. What can authors do to improve their chances of being optioned? And obviously I'm asking for a friend.
Well, Laurie, I actually asked my producer, the guy that's optioned all in, or the company that optioned all in their head, I asked him this question. So according to what he says is, it's random, but if you write in the vein of a popular genre, then straight away you've got more chance of attracting a buyer. So crime drama, crime thrillers, psych thrillers, anything that's kind of like that, much more so than kind of niche like a musical. If you write a contemporary story, it's going to cost a buyer or filmmaker much less to shoot than a period piece. Although if it's a brilliant original take on a period piece, then no problem, right? And he was talking about, I think, The Great, that's out, something about Catherine the Great. Characters, the more formed, deep, the more original, the better. Buyers want to put heroes of our times on their screens, characters and stories that speak about the world that we live in today. And traditional broadcasters want to have content that plays to their usual audience. Apparently, the average age for BBC One is now about 68. So they're trying to kind of attract younger people as well, but they have to kind of use places like iPlayer and BBC Three to kind of put that on to see whether it kind of catches. And streamers want local stories that can appeal to a global audience. So a story about a couple getting divorced could work in any language. But ultimately, he said, just write what you want to write and don't worry about it. So.
Wow, that's really impressive. A guest who's done a lot extensive research before coming on. I like that.
I feel quite bad now because I didn't do any of that homework.
We thought it might be interesting to ask both of you about your favourite novel to screen adaptation. Can you think of a novel that's been really successfully translated to either film or TV? Who should we start with? Should we start with you, Tim?
There's one which I have to watch the other night because it's one of my son's favourite films, weirdly, even though it was made before he was born. Misery by Stephen King, and I loved the book, and then it's one of those films which you kind of think, well, there's kind of really only two people in it. How are they going to make this work? There's a few other characters, but mainly it's carried by those two. So I watched it again. I've seen it loads of times, but it's just still really, really good. Really works. And obviously, Kathy Bates I think she got the Oscar for it, and I think it sort of illustrates how important having the right people in, having the right actors, obviously, is to making it work. So I love Misery by Stephen King. Simple Plan, another one of my sort of favourite thrillers from back when I was when sort of writing was a bit of a pipe dream for me. Simple Plan by Scott Smith, which was made into a film with Billy Bob Thornton and some other people. I really like the book, and again, the film Gone Girl, a bit more recent, and even more recent, The Stranger by Harlan Coben, I think was one of the worked quite well on I think it was 8 parts on. Was it Netflix or?
Yes. I think it's Netflix. Yeah, there's some really good choices there, and I think Misery is a great one because that is absolutely with those two people how that they create that amazing tension. It's a brilliant novel and a brilliant film.
Because so much of the novel happens inside his head as well. So it's like you're thinking, because he's literally he spends most of the film in bed, and you're just like, or crawling around on the floor. So to make that come alive, and clearly people still like it now because my son's 18 and he's already watched it about 3 times, I think. So I think he's a bit of a Stephen King fan, I think. But just a really, 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 really effective film.
What about you, Nikki? Have you got any good examples, or has Tim used them all up?
Well, I was going to say Stephen King as well for The Shawshank Redemption. That's one of my kind of favourite films, which started off obviously it was his novella, but it was, it got then made into a kind of full-length movie. I think that's one of my favourite ever films. And I also love Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn that went on the screen with Amy Adams, I think, played Camille Preaker, and I thought that was really well translated. I think she wrote some of the screenplay for it. I don't know if she did all of it, but she was certainly involved, and maybe that helps if you've had the person who's written the original novel to kind of keep that kind of basis for it. But I love those two.
I was thinking I really enjoyed Big Little Lies, was it HBO? I think it was, wasn't it? The Leon Moriarty novel. I thought that was Leon Moriarty. Yeah, that is right. That was a really good adaptation, I thought, because I loved the book and I loved the TV series as well. It was really good. And what was the other film?
Yeah, I think you just
thinking about the other day, The World According to Garp. I mean, it's an old film. I think it was 1980s, but I remember reading the novel by John Irving when I was in my 20s. That was a long while ago, too long. And I remember absolutely loving the novel. I think I ought to reread it actually to see whether I still love it, because it might have dated, I don't know. But I thought it was a fantastic novel, and I didn't like the film at all. And I thought it was going to be good because it was Robin Williams, and but it just, to me, it just did not work at all. So there've been a few duds as well, haven't there? But when it works, it works.
Yeah, too many to mention, I think, on the dud front. But so you've stolen all the Stephen King. I was only going to add The Green Mile, which I think is another fantastic example. But I read once that he was so frustrated with how they adapted The Shining with Jack Nicholson that he then created his own production company, Castle Rock Entertainment, which is why so many of his films are just such good adaptations, because he has all the involvement in them. So maybe if I set up my own production company, I'll get optioned quite quickly.
That's a really good idea, Laurie.
Yeah, good plan.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I read somewhere that he went through a stage of offering the option rights for $1 to the book, but the condition of it was that he had to have full control over the cast, director, script writer, all that stuff. So I don't know what stage. That's probably maybe before Castle Rock came along, but I think he was clearly frustrated, I think, early on, and certainly with The Shining, the way that turned out. But he must be one of the most, in terms of book to screen, he must be one of the most prolific, I would have thought, of anyone. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, they've just been done loads, haven't they? So
Well, and I think did you mention earlier Sleeping with the Enemy, Nikki? Was that one of the things you mentioned? Because that was a really good. Well, I shouldn't. That was a better film, I thought, than a book. I shouldn't really say that, should I? I mean, I just felt that film. I mean, although the film itself didn't have brilliant reviews, I think if you look at some of the ratings and the reviews, not many people liked it, but I thought it was very good. So I think we were going to ask you what you're reading at the moment, you guys. Are you reading anything exciting at the moment that you want to share with us?
Well, I've just read Tim's, Trust Me, which I loved.
Very good. Glad to hear it.
It was wonderful. And I've also just read, there's a couple I've read. I've got Proof of the Anniversary by Laura Marshall. That's her new one. And I've just finished that, and it's fabulous. As was The Murder Box by Olivia Kiernan, which, so there we go. Love both of those. So that's what I've just finished reading.
Fantastic. What about you, Tim?
I've just read this by Catherine Steadman, which is really good. That's a proof cover. I think it's not going to be a final cover, I don't think, but Disappearing Act. So it's coming out quite soon. And Catherine Steadman I've never met her, but she's in Downton. She's an actress. She's in loads and loads of things.
I thought I recognised her name. Yeah.
She's an actress, and there you go.
That's it. Yeah.
And author, so this book is set in Hollywood, and so it's kind of clearly drawing on a lot of her own experiences with her friends, and it's a thriller, but it's set in Hollywood, so it's really sort of fascinating, insight into some of the things that go on there and the way it all works out there, and that's really good. What else have I read? Missing Pieces by Tim Weaver, which has just come out. That was really, really good. Castaways, Lucy Clark. These are all kind of advanced. Well, that has also just come out, I think, recently, but that's really good. And I've just started That Night by Gillian McAllister, but I'm only about a few chapters into it. So, but it starts off really with a bang, sort of thing. So
I love that. Yeah, very good.
You've read that too, have you, Nikki?
Oh. Yes, I had an early copy, and it's brilliant. Yeah, very good.
And what about you, Laurie? What are you reading at the moment?
Well, I've just finished Tim's as well, which obviously I loved. And I haven't got anything else to hold up because I held up lots last week, but I am reading The Serial Killer's Wife by Alice Hunter, which I'm really enjoying. And that's out next month. And I've also just requested to read, and hopefully we'll get a proof of very quickly, You Let Me In by Emma Curtis, which I think the proofs are just becoming available for. So I'm looking forward to reading that one next. So that's my two. What about you, Leslie?
Well, I'm in the middle of the Murder Box. I think everyone's reading that at the moment. So, and I'm really loving it. I love Frankie Sheehan. I've read, the other two in the series. And I've got When I Was 10, Fiona Cummins. Went to her online launch a few weeks ago, and it was great actually. She was interviewed by Val McDermid. It was really, really good. So I'm interested in that because it's a very, very different novel from The Rumour, but it's inspired by a similar case, the Mary Bell case. So I'm always interested in those sort of novels. So, and I've started reading it, and it's great. She's a really good writer. Yeah, really good.
Very good.
Great cover as well. So, right. Okay. So I think, I just had another idea about a brilliant screen adaptation. I don't know if any of you watched, it was on quite recently. It was called Too Close. I think the reviews have been mixed, but I loved it. It was a psychological thriller, and it was Emily Watson and Denise Gough, I think her name is. And it's based on a novel written by an actress, Clara Salomon. I think it's a novel. The novel was called Too Close, and it's written by Natalie Daniels, and that's a pen name of Clara Salomon. And it was really, really good. So if you get a chance to see that, it's just a 3-parter. And
I've seen adverts for it actually, and I've heard quite a lot of people have raved about the acting in it. So yes, that's one for my list, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Right, so yes, this is time for our fun question now, because the rest hasn't been fun at all. It's been an absolute chore, hasn't it? So because this episode's all about film and TV deals, we thought we would ask you that if your life was made into a movie, perish the thought, but if it was, who would play you? Who would play the part of you? Or if you don't want to answer that, you can answer, have you ever been told you look like a particular celebrity or star? Shall we start with you, Nikki?
Oh goodness. I don't know. I've never been told that I look like a celebrity, unfortunately. So there isn't anybody who particularly springs to mind. But I love Gillian Anderson, so I'd be quite happy if she played me. And Nicola Walker, I can watch in anything. So yeah.
She's brilliant, isn't she? She's a mesmerising.
Absolutely fabulous. So yeah, either of those two. Very happy. Yeah.
What about you, Tim?
Well, I'm sort of answering both questions. There's a bit of a standing joke in my family. I say my family, mostly my kids, and who just like to sort of, throw it around every so often. So it'd have to be Philip Schofield.
I do see what they mean, just slightly. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's always
with you in your little cabin down there, and then you'd be sorted, wouldn't you? Yeah. There
are a couple of cats, but I think they're both asleep. So yeah. There's always a bit of they always like to wind me up with that, and their friends come round and it's like, oh, your dad, the one that looks like Philip Schofield. And then I think I was walking through town the other day, and I'm sure I heard someone do a bit of a double take and say, "Is that Philip Schofield over there?" And so I do kind of. I think I'm a little bit taller than him, but
it must be even worse now because his hair. He's now got his hair white, hasn't he?
Has he? Okay,
I think so.
He's copying me.
He's copying you. He wants to look like TM Logan.
So it would have to be. I don't know if he's probably quite hard to pin down, but if he's available, then the Scof would probably be the one.
Yeah.
What about you, Laurie? Who would play you in a film of Lauren North?
Well, I think I really love Jodie Whittaker, so I think I'd ask her to play me because I just think she's a phenomenal actress. But I've never been told I look like anyone, unless you count my husband, who likes to tell me I look like some sort of creature from the Black Lagoon when I wake up in the morning. But I don't liken that to my celebrity status. What about you, Leslie?
Oh, Jennifer Aniston, isn't it obvious? Come on. I don't know. I've no idea. Do you know, I've never really thought about it before, to be honest, before we thought about this question. But Oh, who would play me? I don't know. Meryl Streep, let's say. I think we share a sort of nose, sort of possibly. I don't know. Mine's probably bigger and I don't know. No idea. But yeah, moving on. Moving on to our quick fire round.
Moving on, quick fire round. So I am going to ask a question and I want you both just to shout out your answers as quickly as you can, okay?
Is there a prize?
No, we haven't got a prize.
We can tell
The
who's
prize is...
can't we? Yes.
All right then, okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Coffee.
Sweet or savoury?
Savoury.
Cinema, night out, or feet up and Netflix?
Night out.
Night out.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Morning.
Run, walk, swim, or bike?
Run.
Walk.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Cat.
Are you right at the desk or propped on the sofa?
Desk.
Desk.
A planner or pantster?
Planner.
And the last film you watched was?
It was Misery, actually. I think it was Sunday night or Saturday. Yeah, Sunday night, I think. Yeah.
Line of Duty on Sunday night.
Very good, well done.
Well done. That was really good. Oh, and I think we've come to sort of coming to the end now. I just want to say how lovely it's been having not just two guests but two wonderful guests, and
Yes.
two guests we both really admire, and can't wait to meet up with you soon at our next real event, whenever that is. And we both really look forward to seeing your wonderful novels on screen very soon.
It has been really fantastic speaking to you both, and so fascinating to hear the different stories of how you both come to being optioned and how it's all going. And it seems like such a different path for each different author. So it's really interesting to talk to all three of you actually about the process. On our next show, we have got two authors again, and our topic is hybrid authors. So those that have traditionally published and also self-publish. And we've got the very wonderful Mel Sharrett and Caroline Mitchell coming on.
Yes, can't wait for that. And because they're both going to be fun, because they're not that you two haven't been fun, you've been fun as well. They're going to be fun. God, that sounded terrible. I didn't mean.
Now it all comes out. The truth can be
Cut
told.
that out. Cut that bit out. You've been great. What I meant to say was, before I put my huge foot in it, was that they're best friends in real life, aren't they? So they'll be very, I'm sure they'll have lots to say. We probably won't get a word in edgeways. So that leaves us with the final task of saying thank you for watching and listening to
In Suspense.
In Suspense.
Well, I
It's
thought
about 5 seconds.
really well, and then Laurie was 5 seconds afterwards.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Thank you for having us.
Hope it wasn't too chaotic for you.
No, that was lovely. And
That was very good.
Brilliant. All right then. Thanks a lot, and see you soon. Hopefully see you in July.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah. See you.
Bye.
Bye.